Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Aurora as it approached the massive space station floating in the void. The structure was bigger than any city on Earth and gleamed with strange metals that seemed to shift color in the starlight. After 3 months of travel through space using coordinates provided by alien visitors, humanity was about to meet the rulers of the galaxy. The first contact had happened 6 months ago when a small alien ship appeared near Mars. The beings inside looked like tall insects with 4 arms and spoke through machines that translated their clicks into English. They called themselves Scouts from the Galactic Council and said they represented 12 different alien races that controlled most of known space. They invited Earth to send representatives to their capital world. Now Jake looked at his crew as they prepared to dock with the alien station. Lieutenant Amy Brooks checked the communication systems, while Commander Ryan Bennett reviewed their diplomatic instructions. Dr. Elena Rodriguez studied the alien technology they could see through the viewports. Everyone felt nervous but excited to represent all of humanity. The docking process was smooth, and soon Jake found himself walking through corridors filled with the strangest sights he had ever seen. The walls seemed alive with moving patterns, and the air tasted different despite the breathing masks they wore. Other beings moved through the halls, and Jake saw creatures that looked like living crystals, others that seemed to be made of liquid, metal, and some that floated without touching the ground. The main council chamber was enormous, with a ceiling that stretched so high it disappeared into darkness. 12 different sections held the representatives of each alien race. Jake had studied their files, but seeing them in person was overwhelming. The Kitharan delegate looked like a mountain of blue crystal that pulsed with inner light. The hegemony representative was a blob of silver that constantly changed shape. The others were equally strange and impressive. Council Speaker Vex Thul rose from the central platform. He was the crystalline being Jake had read about, and his voice echoed like breaking glass when he spoke. "So these are the humans from the 3rd planet of the Yellow Star," he said in a tone that sounded amused. "We have been watching your species for some time now." Jake stepped forward and gave the greeting he had practiced for months. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, I am Captain Jake Morrison, representing the United Earth Government. We come in peace, seeking friendship and cooperation with all intelligent species." Several of the alien delegates made sounds that Jake realized were laughter. The crystalline speaker continued, "Friendship? Cooperation? Little human, you do not understand your place in the galaxy. Your species discovered space travel only recently. You have no idea what exists beyond your tiny world. We may be new to space travel, but we are willing to learn," Jake replied, trying to stay calm. "Earth offers our knowledge and resources in exchange for membership in your council." This time, the laughter was louder and came from multiple delegates. The silver blob shaped itself into something like a face and spoke in a voice like pouring water. "Membership? You cannot be serious. Humans are barely evolved from primitive animals. You still fight wars on your own planet. Your technology is thousands of years behind ours." Jake felt his anger rising, but kept his voice steady. "Every species must start somewhere. We believe we can contribute to the galactic community." Speaker Vex Thul's crystal body flashed brighter. "Indeed, every species starts somewhere. Most intelligent species in the galaxy began as protected worlds under our guidance. This is what we offer Earth. Submit to our protection, and we will slowly introduce you to galactic civilization over the next few centuries. You will have food, safety, and peace under our care." "And if we refuse this protection?" Jake asked. The chamber fell silent. The crystalline speaker's light dimmed to an ominous glow. "Refusal would be most unwise. Species that reject our protection often face difficulties. Pirates attack unprotected worlds. Trade agreements become impossible. Sometimes entire civilizations simply disappear from space." Jake looked around the chamber at the 12 alien races. Each one stared at him with expressions he could not read, but the message was clear. submit or face the consequences. He thought about Earth and the billions of people depending on him to make the right choice. "We appreciate your offer," Jake said carefully, "but humanity prefers to stand on its own. We request equal membership in your council as a free and independent species." The silence stretched for long moments before Speaker Vexthul began making the crystalline sound that served as laughter. Soon the entire chamber echoed with alien amusement. When the noise finally died down, the speaker's voice carried a tone of finality. "Very well, little human. We give your species one galactic standard year to reconsider this foolish decision. When that time ends, we will return to discuss your options again. Perhaps by then your people will have gained wisdom." Jake knew a threat when he heard one, but he stood straight and nodded. "We understand. Thank you for your time." As the Aurora departed the alien station, Jake watched the massive structure shrink in the distance. He had just committed humanity to a path that might lead to war with the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. But he also knew that freedom was worth any price, and humans had never backed down from a fight when their independence was at stake. Admiral Lisa Parker stood in the Situation Room deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching displays that showed activity across the entire solar system. 3 months had passed since Captain Morrison returned from his meeting with the Galactic Council, and Earth had not wasted a single day. While the aliens assumed humans would spend their year in fear and eventual surrender, humanity was preparing for the fight of their lives. Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked 18-hour days in her laboratory, studying every piece of alien technology the diplomatic mission had brought back. The aliens had shared what they called basic courtesy information, simple devices that any civilized species should possess. What they did not realize was that human scientists could reverse engineer principles from the smallest components and expand them in ways their creators never imagined. "The energy source in this communication device," Elena explained to her team, "operates on a principle we never discovered. But if we scale it up and modify the containment field, we can power weapons that would have taken us 50 years to develop." Her assistant, Danny Rodriguez, pointed to the scanning device they had disassembled. "The detection systems work by reading quantum signatures. If we understand how they see us, we can learn to hide from them." Across the facility, teams of engineers worked with Commander Ryan Bennett to design humanity's first real space fleet. The shipyards in Earth orbit that had been building cargo vessels and research ships were now constructing warships using hybrid technologies that combined alien science with human engineering. "The aliens build their ships for comfort and efficiency," Ryan explained to his design team. "Their vessels are beautiful and sophisticated, but they are not built for war. Our ships will be ugly, fast, and deadly." The human ships took shape, with thick armor plating, redundant systems, and weapons that fired solid projectiles instead of energy beams. While alien shields could deflect most energy weapons, they were not designed to stop chunks of metal moving at incredible speeds. Maya Johnson operated from a small office that officially did not exist, running intelligence operations that had somehow penetrated alien information networks. The diplomatic mission had provided her with access codes and communication protocols that the aliens never expected humans to understand or exploit. "Their military records go back 3,000 years," Maya reported to Admiral Parker. "The last real war they fought was 1,500 years ago, and it lasted only 6 months. Since then, they have only dealt with primitive worlds that surrendered immediately when faced with superior technology. The intelligence was revealing in disturbing ways. The Galactic Council maintained power through overwhelming technological advantage, but their actual military forces were small and scattered. Most member species contributed only token fleets to the Council forces because they had never faced a real threat. Admiral Zektar of the Hegemony was assembling the force that would return to Earth when the deadline expired. Maya's intelligence showed his fleet consisted of 50 ships, which the aliens considered massive overkill for dealing with one primitive world. Previous pacification missions had used as few as 5 ships to force entire civilizations into submission. While the aliens prepared their modest show of force, Earth mobilized on a scale not seen since the Great Wars of the 20th century. Every nation contributed resources and personnel to the defense effort. Factories that had built cars and computers retooled to produce weapons and ship components. The asteroid belt became a mining operation as humans harvested raw materials needed for the growing fleet. Captain Steve Anderson commanded one of the new squadrons training in the outer system. His ships practiced maneuvers that no alien military manual had ever considered. Instead of the formal line battles that galactic warfare had used for millennia, human tactics emphasized speed, unpredictability, and coordinated swarm attacks. "Remember," Steve told his pilots during a training exercise, "their ships are bigger and more powerful than ours, but they expect us to line up and fight like gentlemen. We are going to fight like humans." The training was intense and dangerous. Human pilots pushed their ships and themselves to limits that alien crews would never attempt. Several ships were lost during exercises, but the survivors learned lessons that no galactic military academy taught. Captain Amy Brooks led the development of fighter-craft tactics that utilize small ships in ways alien doctrine considered impossible. Her squadrons practiced flying through asteroid fields and using debris as cover, while alien ships relied on open space battles where their superior firepower could dominate. "We cannot match their technology," Amy explained to her pilots, "but we can use our environment in ways they never learned. Every asteroid, every piece of space debris, every gravity becomes a weapon if we use it correctly." The moon transformed into a fortress as construction crews worked around the clock installing weapon systems and defensive shields. The alien technology provided the power sources, but human engineering created applications that surprised even the designers. What should have been simple defense platforms became adaptive weapons that could be reconfigured for different threats. Dr. Nathan Clark made the breakthrough that would change everything when he discovered how alien faster-than-light communication worked. The technology operated by manipulating space and time in ways that human physics had only theorized about. But understanding the principles opened possibilities that alien scientists had never explored. "If we can manipulate time and space for communication," Nathan explained to the research team, "we can manipulate it for other purposes. Our ships could operate in ways that violate their understanding of physics." The work was exhausting and sometimes seemed impossible, but humans adapted with the same determination that had carried them from caves to the stars. Every challenge became a problem to solve rather than an obstacle to surrender to. The alien. Year was shorter than Earth year, but even that worked in humanity's favor as they crammed decades of military development into months. As the deadline approached, Admiral Parker reviewed the reports from across the solar system. The fleet was ready, the defenses were in place, and the soldiers were trained. Earth still faced overwhelming odds against an enemy with superior technology and thousands of years of experience. But humanity had something the aliens had forgotten. During their millennia of easy dominance, they had the will to fight for freedom no matter the cost. Admiral Zektar looked at the displays showing the Sol system as his fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the outer planets. The silver liquid that formed his body rippled with satisfaction as he prepared to complete what should be a simple mission. 50 ships against one primitive world was such overwhelming force that resistance seemed impossible. "Broadcast the surrender demand," he ordered his communications officer. "Tell the humans they have 1 hour to signal their submission before we begin bombardment operations." The message went out across Earth's communication channels, but instead of the terrified response he expected, Admiral Parker's voice came back clear and steady. "This is Admiral Lisa Parker of the United Earth Defense Force. You are ordered to leave our solar system immediately. Any hostile action will be met with force." Zektar's body shifted to a darker silver as amusement flowed through him. "Defense Force? They actually think they can fight us." He addressed his fleet commanders. "Begin the advance. Destroy any military installations you encounter, but leave the cities intact. We will need the population centers for administration after their surrender. The alien fleet moved inward through the solar system, expecting to brush aside token resistance before reaching Earth. Instead, they found themselves entering a carefully prepared killing field. The first sign of trouble came when they passed Jupiter, and sensor readings showed the gas giant's moons bristling with weapons that should not exist. Captain Steve Anderson watched from his flagship as the alien fleet approached the outer defensive perimeter. His squadron of 20 ships was hidden in Jupiter's radiation shadow, invisible to alien sensors that were not designed to look for threats hiding in such dangerous areas. "All ships, this is Anderson," he transmitted on the quantum communication system that aliens could not intercept. "Wait for my signal, then hit them fast and get out. Remember, we are not trying to win this battle. We are trying to teach them that humans bite back." The alien fleet was halfway past Jupiter when Steve gave the order. 20 human ships burst from concealment, moving faster than alien tactical computers could track. Instead of the stately line battles that galactic warfare used, the humans attacked in a coordinated swarm that hit the alien formation from multiple directions simultaneously. Admiral Zektar felt shock ripple through his liquid form as energy. Beams and projectile weapons struck his ships from impossible angles. The human vessels moved with reckless speed through areas where radiation should have fried their crews. Their weapon systems fired solid projectiles that punched through. Shields designed to deflect energy weapons. "How are they doing this?" demanded his tactical officer, a crystalline being whose normally calm demeanor showed cracks of stress. "Their technology is primitive, but they are using it in ways our defense systems cannot counter." The battle raged. For 6 hours as human ships darted in and out of the alien formation like angry wasps. Steve's squadron lost 8 ships, but destroyed 12 alien vessels and damaged many more. When he finally ordered withdrawal, Admiral Zektar was left staring at casualty reports that should have been impossible. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "they modified our own technology. The weapons systems and shield generators are based on equipment we gave them during the diplomatic mission, but they have enhanced the designs in ways our engineers said were impossible." Captain Amy Brooks commanded the second wave of human defenders as the alien fleet regrouped and continued toward Mars. Her carrier group had spent months perfecting fighter tactics that alien military doctrine had never encountered. While galactic warfare relied on large ships fighting other large ships, humans had developed small craft that could strike vital systems and escape before heavy weapons could respond. "Fighter squadrons launch," Amy commanded as her ships emerged from the asteroid belt. "Target their engine systems and communication arrays, make them blind and slow." Hundreds of human fighters swarmed toward the alien fleet like a cloud of metal insects. The small craft were too numerous and too fast for the alien point defense systems that were designed to stop missiles rather than piloted ships. Fighter pilots like Lieutenant Danny Rodriguez flew through defensive fire that would have destroyed larger vessels, using the speed and maneuverability of their craft to reach targets that seemed impossible to attack. Admiral Zektar watched, in growing alarm as his carefully organized fleet began to fall apart. Human fighters were shutting down his communications, damaging his engines, and generally making coordinated action impossible. His ships were individually more powerful than anything the humans possessed, but they could not bring that power to bear against enemies that refused to stand still and fight properly. The engagement near Mars lasted 8 hours and cost humanity 40 fighters and 3 destroyers. But it cost the aliens 18 ships and left the remainder of their fleet scattered and partially disabled. Admiral Zektar found himself in the unprecedented position of having to retreat and regroup against an enemy he had expected to defeat in minutes. As the alien fleet pulled back to assess their situation, Captain Morrison addressed Earth from the bridge of his ship. The diplomatic vessel had been refitted with weapons and now served as part of the defense fleet. "Citizens of Earth," he announced, "we have struck the first blow for human freedom. The aliens came expecting easy victory, but they have learned that humans do not surrender. The news of the battles spread across Earth and throughout human colonies. What had seemed like certain defeat was revealing itself as a fight humanity could actually win. The aliens had superior technology, but they were fighting according to rules that humans had never learned and therefore felt no obligation to follow. Admiral Zektar regrouped his remaining ships in the outer system and sent reports back to the Galactic Council. His messages described humans who fought with impossible tactics, used technology in ways that defied scientific principles, and showed a level of coordination and determination that galactic civilization had not seen in millennia. Request immediate. Reinforcements, he concluded his report. The human resistance is far more capable than intelligence estimates suggested. This will not be the simple pacification mission we planned. On Earth, Admiral Parker reviewed the battle reports with satisfaction mixed with grim determination. The human forces had performed better than anyone dared hope, but this was only the beginning. The aliens would return with more ships and better preparation. The galaxy was about to learn that underestimating humans came with a price, but the final cost was yet to be determined. Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked through the night analyzing wreckage. From the destroyed alien ships, each piece of debris provided new insights into alien technology and new opportunities to improve human weapons and defenses. The war was far from over, but humanity had proven they could hurt their enemies. As reports came in from across the solar system, one thing became clear to everyone involved. The galaxy had just discovered that Earth was not the helpless primitive world they had assumed, and humans were not the weak species that would submit to alien rule without a fight. High Counselor Nexara stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council as reports of the human resistance played on the central display. The tall insectoid being's 4 arms gestured with agitation as she addressed the assembled representatives of 12 species who had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. "This is unprecedented," she declared, her translated voice carrying notes of alarm that transcended species barriers. "A primitive world has not only refused our protection, but has actively destroyed Council forces. Admiral Zektar's fleet was defeated by creatures who discovered space travel less than a century ago." The crystalline speaker Vex Thul pulsed with angry light as he reviewed the battle reports. 47 ships lost or damaged by a species we classified as barely evolved primates. This cannot be allowed to stand. If word spreads that humans can defy the Council, other worlds might follow their example. War Marshal Krivoth rose from his section of the chamber. The ancient warrior belonged to a species that looked like walking trees covered in metallic bark, and his voice rumbled like an earthquake when he spoke. "I have spent 500 years bringing order to chaos throughout the galaxy. No species has ever successfully resisted Council authority. These humans will learn the price of defiance." The Council voted unanimously to authorize full military action against Earth. 5 member species would contribute their most powerful warships to create an armada that could crack planets and reshape star systems. The assembled fleet would number over 3,000 vessels equipped with weapons that could manipulate matter at the quantum level. Back on Earth, intelligence operative Maya Johnson intercepted communications about the massive force being assembled against humanity. The numbers were staggering, and the technology involved was beyond anything humans had previously encountered. She transmitted her findings to Admiral Parker with a heavy heart, knowing that the first battle had only made their enemies angry. "They are bringing planet crackers," Maya reported during the emergency briefing. "Weapons that can literally break worlds apart. They have reality warping devices that can change the fundamental laws of physics in localized areas. This is not just a military force, it is the combined might of galactic civilization." Dr. Elena Rodriguez had spent the months since the first battle working feverishly to improve human defenses. The alien wreckage provided a wealth of information, but the scale of what was coming seemed impossible to counter. "We have made advances," she told the assembled military leaders, but they are bringing technologies that operate on principles we barely understand. Colonel Marcus Wright had overseen the deployment of Earth's secret defensive network during the preparation time. The quantum-linked platforms that surrounded the solar system represented humanity's best hope of survival, but even he worried they might not be enough against the force that was approaching. The defense grid is online and functional, Marcus reported. We can coordinate defensive fire across the entire system, and our new temporal manipulation systems will give us tactical advantages. But we are still talking about thousands of alien ships with weapons that can destroy planets. Dr. Nathan Clark had made breakthrough after breakthrough in temporal mechanics based on alien communication technology. His work had led to defensive systems that could operate outside normal space-time, making human positions difficult for alien sensors to target accurately. We cannot match their firepower, Nathan explained to the research team, but we can make ourselves very hard to hit. Our ships can slip between seconds, and our defensive platforms can exist in multiple time streams simultaneously. When the alien armada finally arrived at the edge of the solar system 3 months later, even veteran space officers stopped to stare at the display screens. The fleet stretched across space like a glittering city with ships the size of mountains and weapons that glowed with barely contained energy. War Marshal Krevoth's flagship alone was larger than Earth's moon. Humans of the third planet came. The transmission from the alien commander. You face the united military might of the Galactic Council. Surrender immediately, and your deaths will be swift. Continue your resistance, and we will make your world an example that the galaxy will remember for 1,000 generations. Admiral Parker stood on the bridge of humanity's newest and most powerful ship as she prepared to respond. The vessel around her incorporated every technological advance human scientists had made and represented the pinnacle of human engineering. But it was still tiny compared to the smallest ship in the alien fleet. War Marshal Krevoth, she transmitted back. This is Admiral Lisa Parker of the United Earth Defense Force. You are not welcome in our system. Leave now or face the consequences of your aggression. The alien commander's response was to order an immediate attack. Energy beams that could melt continents lanced out toward Earth's outer defenses, expecting to vaporize human resistance in the opening moments of battle. Instead, they encountered defensive fields that bent space and time around their targets, causing the massive weapons to miss by impossible margins. Captain Sarah Thompson commanded humanity's newest carrier group as the battle began. Her ships launched fighter squadrons that used the temporal manipulation technology to appear and disappear from normal space-time. The small craft struck at alien vessels and vanished before return fire could reach them, causing confusion throughout the alien ranks. All fighters, this is Thompson, she broadcast on quantum channels. Use hit-and-run tactics. Strike fast, strike hard, and get out before they can target you. Make them afraid of shadows. The battle raged across multiple star systems as human forces employed every advantage they could devise. Asteroid belts became minefields, with explosives that existed outside normal time until enemy ships triggered them. Space habitats were converted into massive kinetic weapons and launched at alien formations. The humans fought with a desperation and creativity that alien military doctrine had no answer for. War Marshal Krevoth found himself commanding a battle unlike anything in his 500 years of experience. Human forces appeared from impossible directions, used their own infrastructure as weapons, and employed tactics that seemed to violate the basic principles of warfare. His massive technological advantage was being neutralized by enemies who refused to fight according to any recognizable rules. "How are they doing this?" demanded his tactical coordinator. "Our sensors show human ships in multiple locations simultaneously. Their weapons appear to fire backwards through time. These primitives are using technology that our scientists say is impossible." The fighting continued for weeks as both sides adapted and learned. Humanity lost ships and platforms, but their forces grew stronger with each engagement as human engineers. Incorporated captured alien technology into their designs. The aliens had overwhelming firepower, but found themselves fighting an enemy that turned every disadvantage into an opportunity. As the battle entered its second month, reports began reaching the Galactic Council about the economic cost of the war. Resources that should have been used for trade and development were being consumed by military action. Species that had contributed ships to the Armada began questioning whether defeating one primitive world was worth the price they were paying. The galaxy was learning that humans did not fight wars the way civilized species were supposed to. They used every available resource, turned defensive battles into offensive opportunities, and seemed to view their own losses as acceptable costs rather than reasons to surrender. The comfortable order that had ruled known space for millennia was beginning to crack under the pressure of fighting an enemy that simply refused to lose. The war had been raging for 18 months when the first cracks appeared in galactic civilization. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for centuries were disrupted as military vessels commandeered cargo ships and supply convoys. The Althean mining colonies declared independence when council forces were withdrawn to fight humans, and 3 outer rim systems simply stopped responding to communications from the capital worlds. Captain Danny Rodriguez led his strike force through the Kepler system, where alien supply convoys traveled between their manufacturing worlds and the war front. Human ships had learned to capture alien vessels instead of destroying them, taking their advanced technology and turning it against its creators. Danny's modified cruiser now mounted weapons that combined human engineering with alien power sources, creating hybrid systems that performed beyond the specifications of either technology. "Target the escort ships first," Danny commanded as his squadron prepared to attack the latest convoy. "We need those transport vessels intact. Every piece of equipment we capture is one less advantage they have over us." The raids on alien supply lines had become a nightmare for galactic logistics officers. Human forces appeared without warning, struck with overwhelming local superiority, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. War Marshal Krivoth found his massive fleet slowly starving as the resources needed to maintain such a force became harder and harder to obtain. Major Katie Lewis commanded special operations teams that struck behind enemy lines using captured alien technology improved with human modifications. Her soldiers could infiltrate alien installations, gather intelligence, and cause damage that went far beyond their numbers. The psychological effect on alien forces was devastating as they realized humans could appear anywhere and strike at any target. "The alien crews are starting to break," Katie reported during a briefing with Earth Command. "They have never fought an enemy that adapts this quickly or takes risks they consider suicidal. Morale in their fleet is collapsing as they realize this war will not end quickly." The economic collapse accelerated as species that had relied on council protection for millennia suddenly faced shortages of basic materials. The hegemony worlds that produced advanced electronics found their factories disrupted by human sabotage. The crystal forests of Cathara that generated exotic matter were cut off from their markets by human raiders who controlled the space lanes. On the council capital world of Zentara Prime, High Counselor Nexara faced growing pressure from member species who questioned the wisdom of continuing the war. The insectoid leader's 4 arms gestured frantically as she tried to maintain unity among representatives who were watching their economies crumble. "The humans cannot win," she insisted during emergency sessions that had become daily occurrences. "They are one primitive world against the combined might of galactic civilization. We must continue the fight until they surrender." But War Marshal Krivoth's reports painted a different picture. The ancient warrior had commanded victories across the galaxy for 5 centuries, but found himself facing an enemy that learned from every defeat and adapted faster than his forces could respond. Human ships that had been destroyed in earlier battles were replaced by improved versions that incorporated lessons from their predecessors' failures. They do not fight like any species we have encountered, Krivoth reported to the council. When we destroy their ships, they study the wreckage and build better ones. When we capture their soldiers, they provide false information that leads our forces into traps. They use our own tactical doctrines against us while developing new strategies we cannot predict. The breakthrough that changed everything came when Dr. Nathan Clark successfully reverse-engineered the alien faster-than-light drive systems. Human ships could now travel between star systems as quickly as their enemies, turning the local conflict around Earth into a galaxy-wide war. Captain Steve Anderson led the first human expedition beyond the solar system, carrying the fight directly to alien worlds that had never faced attack. Remember, Steve addressed his crews as they prepared to jump to alien space. We are not conquerors. We are liberators. Every world we free from Council control is one less source of ships and resources for their war machine. The psychological shock of human ships appearing in alien star systems was enormous. Species that had lived under Council protection for thousands of years suddenly found primitive human vessels in their skies, offering freedom from galactic rule. Some worlds welcomed the humans as liberators, while others sent desperate calls for help to the Council fleet. The Valdrani system was the first to formally declare independence from Council rule. The aquatic species had provided ships to the HFY War effort, but refused to continue supporting what they saw as an unwinnable conflict. When Council forces arrived to restore order, they found human advisors helping the locals organize their defense. Admiral Parker coordinated the expanding conflict from her command ship as human forces spread across known space. The strategy was simple but effective. Force the aliens to fight on multiple fronts while supporting any species that wanted independence from Council rule. The galactic government that had maintained order for millennia found itself facing rebellions on dozens of worlds. We are not trying to conquer the galaxy, Lisa explained to her staff officers. We are showing every oppressed species that the Council can be defeated. Once that idea spreads, their empire will collapse from within. The collapse accelerated as more species declared independence or simply stopped contributing to the war effort. The Nexian communes cut off mineral shipments when their representatives were ignored in Council sessions. The drift folk disappeared, entirely into the void between stars, rather than support either side in the conflict. Maya Johnson's intelligence networks had expanded throughout alien space, providing information about Council movements and weaknesses. The data showed a galactic government that was fracturing under the pressure of fighting a war they had expected to win in days. The economic situation is critical, Maya reported. Half the Council species are in recession, and 3 more are facing revolution. The cost of maintaining the war fleet is bankrupting entire civilizations. War Marshal Krivoth faced the bitter reality that his overwhelming technological superiority was meaningless against an enemy that had turned the entire galaxy into a battlefield. Human forces were now operating in 17 different star systems, supporting rebellions and forcing him to divide his fleet to respond to multiple threats. We cannot be everywhere at once, he admitted to his commanders. The humans have made this conflict too large for any fleet to control. Every world we lose to rebellion requires ships to recapture. Every supply line we defend is one less available for offensive operations. The final blow came when the core industrial worlds of 3 Council species voted to end their participation in the war. The manufacturing base that supported galactic civilization was crumbling as workers refused to produce weapons for a conflict that seemed to have no end. The mighty armada that had been assembled to crush human resistance found itself without the resources needed to continue operations. As the second year of war ended, reports reached the Galactic Council that human ships had been seen in the Zentara system itself. The primitive species that had been dismissed as barely evolved animals was now threatening the capital of galactic civilization. The cost of underestimating Earth was becoming clear to everyone involved, but the price was still rising with no end in sight. The end came not with a great battle, but with a simple transmission from Zentara Prime. High Counselor Nexara's image appeared on communication screens across the galaxy as she announced the dissolution of the Galactic Council's war effort. Her forearms hung limp with exhaustion as she spoke words that would have been unthinkable 3 years earlier. To the humans of Earth and their allies throughout known space, she began, her translated voice carrying defeat and resignation. The Galactic Council formally requests negotiations to end this conflict. We acknowledge that our initial assessment of your species was incorrect and that continued warfare serves no useful purpose. Admiral Lisa Parker received the transmission aboard her flagship as it orbited the ruins of what had once been the Council's primary military shipyard. The massive facility that had produced warships for 1,000 years was now a debris field, destroyed by human forces in a raid that demonstrated how completely the balance of power had shifted. The 2 years of war had transformed both sides, beyond recognition. Humanity had evolved from a single-world species to the leaders of a galactic rebellion that had shattered the foundations of civilization. The humans who emerged from the conflict were hardened veterans who had learned to fight among the stars and win against impossible odds. War Marshal Krivoth stood on the bridge of his heavily damaged flagship as he prepared to meet with human representatives for the first time. The ancient warrior, who had never lost a campaign, found himself in the unprecedented position of surrendering to enemies he had once dismissed as primitive animals. His tree-like form showed the scars of battles that had tested his forces beyond their limits. Captain Jake Morrison, the diplomat who had first encountered alien arrogance, now served as humanity's primary negotiator. His ship approached the meeting point in neutral space, where representatives from dozens of species waited to witness the end of the galactic order that had ruled for 3 millennia. Admiral Krivoth, Jake began as the formal negotiations opened. Humanity bears no hatred toward the species of the former Galactic Council. We fought for our freedom, not for conquest or revenge. We offer you the same choice we wanted for ourselves, the right to determine your own destiny. The surrender ceremonies took place on dozens of worlds as Council forces laid down their weapons and human commanders accepted the end of organized resistance. But unlike the conquests that galactic history was filled with, humanity offered something unprecedented: genuine partnership instead of domination. Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked with alien scientists to share the technological advances that both sides had developed during the war. Human engineering combined with alien science created possibilities that neither species could have achieved alone. The hybrid technologies that had started as weapons of war became tools of peace and exploration. President Daniel Turner addressed the galaxy from Earth as the new Terran Federation was formally established. The former Captain Morrison stood beside him as humanity's first ambassador to the wider galactic community, representing a species that had earned respect through strength rather than receiving it through submission. The age of the Galactic Council is over, Daniel announced, but the age of galactic cooperation is just beginning. The Terran Federation extends membership to any species that shares our values of freedom, equality, and mutual respect. We will defend the rights of all beings to determine their own future. The response was overwhelming, as dozens of species that had chafed under Council rule applied for membership in the new Federation. The Althean colonies that had declared independence during the war became humanity's first allies. The Valdrani systems contributed their expertise in aquatic environments. Even some former Council species requested partnership rather than domination. Captain Sarah Thompson commanded the joint task forces that now patrolled the galaxy, keeping peace between species and protecting smaller civilizations from the chaos that followed the Council's collapse. Her ships carried crews from multiple species, working together as equals rather than rulers and subjects. Maya Johnson established the intelligence services that monitored threats to galactic stability, while respecting the sovereignty of member worlds. The networks that had once gathered information for war now worked to prevent conflicts before they could start. Her operatives included humans and aliens working side by side to maintain peace. The former War Marshal Krevoth found unexpected purpose as an advisor to the Federation military, sharing his centuries of experience with human commanders who treated him as a valued colleague rather than a defeated enemy. His knowledge of galactic military history became invaluable in training the new generation of peacekeepers. "You have taught us something we forgot during our millennia of dominance," he admitted to Admiral Parker during one of their planning sessions. "Strength without wisdom leads to stagnation. Your species brought us the chaos we needed to grow again." Dr. Nathan Clark led joint research teams that pushed the boundaries of science by combining human creativity with alien knowledge. The temporal manipulation technologies developed during the war opened new frontiers in physics that promised revolutionary advances in transportation and communication. The economic recovery took years as new trade relationships replaced the Council's rigid hierarchy. Human merchants like Captain Danny Rodriguez established trading companies that operated according to principles of fair exchange rather than tribute and dominance. The galaxy learned to function as a community of equals rather than a pyramid of power. The transformation was not without challenges. Some former Council species struggled to adapt to their new status as equals rather than rulers. Several splinter groups attempted to restore the old order through force, but found themselves facing the combined might of the Federation and its allies. Captain Steve Anderson led the expeditions that explored regions of space the Council had declared forbidden. These missions discovered new species and civilizations that had hidden from galactic authority for centuries. The Federation's promise of freedom and equality attracted allies from across the galaxy. As the 5th anniversary of First Contact approached, Captain Morrison stood once again on the bridge of a ship approaching Zentara Prime. But this time he came not as a supplicant seeking permission, but as an equal partner in the galactic community. The space station that had once housed the arrogant Council now served as the Federation's diplomatic center. The former Speaker Vex Thule, his crystalline form dimmed with age and wisdom, greeted the human ambassador with respect that would have been impossible during their first meeting. "Captain Morrison," he said, his voice carrying notes of genuine admiration, "your species has achieved something we thought impossible. You have created order from chaos without resorting to domination. The galaxy had learned the cost of underestimating Earth, but more importantly, it had learned the value of treating all species with respect and dignity. The human victory was not just military, but philosophical, proving that strength came not from technology alone, but from the courage to fight for principles that mattered." As Jake looked out at the stars that now represented opportunity rather than threat, he reflected on the journey that had brought humanity from isolation to leadership. The galaxy was forever changed, and at its heart stood the species that had reminded the universe that freedom was worth any price, and that underestimating determination came with consequences no civilization could afford to ignore.